Hi, I'd like to welcome back to iNN's headline news and beyond. This is the second half for Monday, April 9th, 2012. Uh, we left off talking about domestic affairs in the United States in terms of the Republican primary, and that it really does seem to be more or less over. Although, in the media's perspective, the media has now pushed forward uh, and this is also the assumption of the Democrats in terms of how they're handling their strategy. They're wasting no time going after Romney in terms of what his positions are on the issues, and most of the media seems to be following suit. So a lot of the attention that were on the primaries before are now over and done with. They're now moving on to other things. And as Bill O'Reilly says, they're now getting into the mudslinging, and the predictions are is that this election is going to be one of the nastiest elections in recent memory. That this is going to get really really nasty, really ugly. Um, and I'll show you more as I get more information. My domestic affairs new information wasn't as put together as I hoped. There were some technical mistakes with the videos. I want to bring more of it out. So I'll work on that for tomorrow night. I'll also be working on videos and documentaries that will back up what I'm talking about in here. So you'll be able to get a better feel for things. I will be uploading this week, probably either tonight or tomorrow night, the fifth part of Daniel Yergin's The Prize. This is something you need to watch because a lot of what's going on in the world today is really connected to this documentary, or sort of the information that's in the documentary. A lot of the way we see things, particularly in foreign affairs, has so much history behind it that it's almost impossible to separate things from their appropriate content. This is what I was talking about in the last broadcast. That we have a context in which things sit in. The most fundamental context, the largest context that things sit in, is theology. From theology, we get the moral context. From the moral context, we get our constitutional, and then our legal context sits within the constitutional context. It's within these contexts here that society at large forms around these ideals, and this is where your media is, and on a variety of different sides, and But a lot of times we forget the context that things sit in, particularly as we peel back the layers to the more fundamental. We start basically our immediate view is legal, then it's constitutional, then it's moral, and then theological. The problem is that because we are the way we are, we view things in the more immediate terms, and this is where we view things as religion. Religion is the practice of whatever a belief is. It's how you practice your religion, or and the religion can be. It's how you practice your theology, because religion is the practice of theology. It's not the theology itself. Um, in this in this case, religion can be anything, any theology, including a theology that has at its core the idea that there is no God. And what we can do is we can show that in uh, even foreign affairs, in we'll call it the geopolitical sphere of goings on that we see in the news, particularly about Syria, Iran, so on and so forth, that we can actually go back into the different theologies to see how things actually play out. And we can see that um, a lot of different groups, not just one group, but a lot of different groups, have different levels of influence in the environment, and it's not one whole monolithic a conspiracy theory. And this is something also that I'm going to be working on to bring in, is a look at this whole concept of conspiracy theory, the Bilderbergs, the Illuminati, all these different things that are out there that people think, oh, there is one overall riding factor that controls everything. That this is sort of a monolithic type of movement, and we're all heading in one particular direction because of this one monolithic because of this one monolithic control. The problem is this whole concept of a monolithic control is false, and it can be demonstrated to be false. It can be even shown that the whole thing about the Illuminati and the Bilderbergs, if we look into history, we can see this is actually false, even though it has a huge history behind it. We can see that there are a variety of different groups, and these groups make and break alliances as they need to. So it can appear as if one group is one massive group when it's not really one massive group. They're simply working on one thing together, and they're working separately on other things. And this sort of back and forth and making and breaking of alliances can be done in a way that it appears to the public and is presented to the public as one thing, but it's really something different. And this is called false flags. This is called propaganda. This is called PR. And it has infected media in such a way today that it is very difficult to determine whether or not a person who is reporting the story is actually a reporter or is an intelligence agent. And this is the same thing that can be said for human rights, these human rights groups. The human rights groups have now been infiltrated by the CIA, by Mossad, by various intelligence agencies, and are being used as assets in covert military wars. And this is certainly true in Afghanistan. This is true in Iraq. This is true, and it has been true for all of the American involvement in the Middle East. That you've had a huge amount of CIA, Mossad, working on both sides of the aisle. And so when we hear that we have the U.S. and the United Kingdom pushing for destabilization in Syria, this shouldn't come as a surprise to you that they're promoting this as a humanitarian exercise when it's not. What could be the possible motivation? Well, if you're looking at what's going on, particularly in Iran and Israel's position with Iran, you'll know that Israel is strongly connected with the United Kingdom and the U.S. Next, you need to know that if you were watching Daniel Against the Prize, you'll know one of the major oil companies for Britain is known as Anglo-Persian. Well, Anglo-Persian is, if you don't know the company, is actually the company BP. BP is Anglo-Persian. Persia and Persian, the Persian part of Anglo-Persian, is Iran. When the Iranian oil field, when Iran went through the coup, and we had the Shah of Iran overthrown by the Ayatollah, who ironically came from France. He wasn't in Iran at the time. He was in France. He was transported from France to Iran for the revolution. And the thing is that the opposing sides of this in the oil argument is that in France you have Royal Dutch Shell, right? You have the European oil companies, predominantly Royal Dutch Shell. The English company is Anglo-Persian or BP. So these are two competing interests in the region. What are the competing interests here? In Iran, the Shah was set up by the United States in the United Kingdom as the dictator who would control Iran, just the way we have the royal family in Saudi Arabia. Again, this is a U.S. and UK arrangement in Saudi Arabia that keeps the Saudi family in power. So there shouldn't be any mistake as to why the Saudis get a pass on 9/11, and that's very simple because uh, the Saudis get a pass because the Saudis are set up and run by the British and the United States. They're integrally related. So there's the reason why is it has to do with the military relationship and the intelligence relationship between the United States, the United Kingdom, and Saudi Arabia. And of course, there's an oil play in there as well as the key factor. So when you have Iran being overthrown, the Shah of Iran being overthrown by the Ayatollah Khomeini, well, all of a sudden now you have a move that was, instead of uh, uh, being something that was favorable to the United States and the United Kingdom, you now have something that was sort of opposed to the United States in England, and more importantly, opposed to Israel. And this is one of the key factors there, is that you have an Israeli interest in there as well, in terms of what's going on in the Middle East. Israel, for the longest time now, during the presidency of Ronald Reagan, if those of you who remember the Iran-Iraq War, where you had, in a very visible manner, you had the United States, Israel, and everybody else backing and funneling weapons to Iraq. Then it came later out under the Iran-Contra scandal that the United States and Israel was also funding weapons to Iran. And why would the United States and Israel, if they were supporting Iraq and supporting even the use of chemical weapons by Iraq inside of Iran, why would they be supplying Iran with weapons? And the very simple answer is this, and it's a Machiavellian question. This is where you have to go back and read some things like George Orwell or Machiavelli, is because a lot of their stories contain a lot of the goings on in politics. And the politics is that if you want to take control of something, the easiest way to conquer somebody is to divide and conquer. And what has Israel been doing in the Middle East? It's been doing the exact same thing. If they can keep the Arabs and the people in the Middle East fighting, then this clears the route for Israel and a lot of their other, and this includes the American interests, the United Kingdom, the European interests, to walk in and take over. Because they're so busy fighting each other, they don't have the ability or the stamina anymore to fight off an invasion from the outside. So a lot of what's going on in Syria now is you're having both sides of the equation being armed and supplied so that they can fight each other enough so that Israel, the United States, and the United Kingdom can walk in, wipe out the Air Force, and clear a path to Iran through Syria. And this is where they're aiming. This whole diplomacy that's going on between Iran and the world, they know this is going to fail because it was set up by the UN, by the US, by the UK. It was designed to fail. It's designed to fail. And so what they're doing now is what's going on in Syria is the preparation for war in Iran. And this is where you have on the U.S. you have basically they're talking about going in and bombing the sides in order to create this air corridor. And we not only have the United States saying this, but now the confirmation is coming out even further as to actually what's going on. We have confirmation from even people like Senator John McCain coming out and saying that they're in there trying to get rid of Assad. That this is a ploy. They're using the air excuse.
You're not calling, because it's been portrayed that you were calling for basically U.S. planes just flying bombing runs. You're not calling for that. You're calling for other nations in the area as well.
Absolutely. And it's unfortunate because I said foreign air power. In Libya, they were able to do it with British and French and others, and UAE aircraft and others. We have the capacity, in my view, to stop Assad and this slaughter. Now it's reached the point where you have artillery and tanks against AK-47s. It's going to require foreign air power. And again, the United States not going alone, but the United States leading.
I think Bashar al-Assad has bought time. He knows what he's doing. His intention is the same as it's always been, and that's to destroy the opposition. He intends to wipe them out. He's not going to negotiate. He doesn't care what the UN wants. Yes, the UN's been played. And Marie, I mean, is there any reason for anyone in the world, the UN, the Arab League, Kofi Annan, whoever, to believe what Bashar al-Assad says about doing a ceasefire?
Oh, I understand. I agree with Bob. I don't think he's going to stop. I don't think there's any reason any of us should expect him to stop tomorrow. He has broken one promise after another, and he will say whatever it takes to give him more chance to keep killing.
Bob, you say Kofi Annan can be in Damascus every other day, and it won't make any difference. None at all. I mean, this regime, we have to go back and look what they're fighting for. They're fighting for their survival. I talked to someone in the regime not long ago, and he said they figure about 30% of the people support Bashar al-Assad, not because of him, but they're afraid of what the opposition is going to do. And he told me they will hold on until the bitter end, until one side is completely won. And Anne-Marie, I mean, is there still a time for resolving this diplomatically?
Well, I think actually the U.S. government and other allies have been right to give it every possible chance for a diplomatic resolution, but I do think that time is at an end. I think Kofi Annan did what he could do. He got people on board, but it's going to be clear that that's not going to solve things, and at this point, either we're going to have to say we more or less accept the situation we have now where Assad is going to just keep killing, or we not only keep tightening economic sanctions, other sanctions, but we start moving toward a real possibility of military action.
And Bob, what would that look like, military action? I mean, we're not talking about U.S. boots on the ground, certainly. John McCain has talked about international airstrikes. There's also, I guess, arming opposition. What do you see as options? Well, I think, first of all, it's key what Anne-Marie was saying is, look, we're moving to a worse situation as we speak. Unless there's some sort of a miracle that occurs tonight or tomorrow, we're going to see this violence spread. We're going to see it spread more into Lebanon. There was a killing there today in Lebanon. There's been killings in Turkey, shooting across the border. And once this thing starts to spread beyond Syria's borders, I think it's fairly inevitable we're going to have to use air assets to destroy his armor and take his air assets out of.
All right, so there you go. There's the the old adage that we have to use military weapons, and what you want to do is you want to spot the contradiction in there. You saw the McCain video, which was recorded earlier. It's from an earlier broadcast. And he was saying that they've already been supplying weapons and all other means of support to the rebels. And yet here's this lady here on the other just yesterday actually on Monday, saying the United States is giving diplomacy every chance it possibly can. Really? How can you be supplying weapons to the rebels, encouraging them to go in and continue fighting with Bashar al-Assad's men, the army, creating a war on the ground, essentially, and then saying, oh, we're giving humanitarian aid a chance. And then they're not doing that. They're not. But both of them talk about airstrikes. Remember, I was saying that they're going to go in and take out Assad's air force because they need the path to fly to in order to attack Iran. Well, this is it. Here's the unfolding of it. They're saying this exactly what's going on here. And the thing is, here's where I say this is now, from Bibi and AIPAC. This is from his perspective. Sort of a PR promotion. This is being pushed by a political group supporting Israel. But this AIPAC group does not represent Israel. It does not represent the average Israeli person, because I went in and I checked. I actually went in and I checked with the Syrian TV. And here's what I found about the Syrian TV. There are channels, particularly and this particularly that we're being told that Syrian TV, the opposition channels have been all but shut off. They've been turfed off the air. No one is getting any of the information that's going out in the Middle East about with the Arab groups, about what's going on in Syria. And this is apparently false. I went and checked. I can get live footage from Syrian TV. These are Islamic channels. They're not being broadcast here in the United States because they've been blocked and banned by the United States. Protect IP and SOPA, this sort of the IP blacklist, is already in effect. Well, a lot of people don't understand that this blacklisting and this blockage, the censorship of the internet, is not occurring just in Syria. Matter of fact, it's occurring less in Syria than it is occurring here. We have, in the United States on its internet has more censorship of what's going on in the Middle East than Bashar al-Assad does inside of Syria. So this has to give you some pause for thought here. And I'll give you a couple of just sort of, we'll go around and see. We're saying, oh, these rebels, these freedom fighters, who are they? What are they about? Well, if you go and look at I do have access to the Middle East sites through various different internet portals and different sort of internet means. There are ways of moving around these IP blocks and blacklists. It doesn't mean that they actually get stopped from being put out. There is no such thing as an IP blacklist or anything like that. There are always ways around these things on the internet. That's the way that the internet works. The internet has thousands of paths in order that you can sort of go around and work with. It's just the main and more obvious paths get blocked through the IP blacklist. And if you have the means and know-how, you can always work around these blocks and blacklists, and I've done that. And so I can sort of see what's going on on the ground there. I've got a good feel. This is where I was working out today, and this is why I was a little bit late. Is I do have this going on, and I know that the journalist who was shot was working for a banned Islamic channel. This channel that this reporter was working for is banned in the United States because it's a jihadist channel. I've seen I don't know, there must be 30 different jihadist channels showing what's going on in Syria. And the jihadists are in there fighting. And it's up on their websites that they're fighting. And when you go around to the different parts of the world where the jihadists are, what do we see? In Yemen, right? Headlines for today, right? For April 9th, right? 60 people killed when the jihadists attacked a military base inside of Yemen. Yemen was supposed to be fixed because we had a regime change there. Remember the Arab Spring, right? Supposed to bring a regime change and fix things up. Well, today, 60 dead after an attack on the military base by jihadists. Inside Somalia, 12 people were killed when a bomb explodes in a market. The main suspects, the main people behind us, the jihadists, right? Nigeria, in front of a church, bomb blows up, kills 38 people. In Afghanistan, suicide bombing again, aimed at other Muslims, 9 people killed. And here I found, as I'm digging through the background, digging through the reports, what do I find on one of the back pages? In Libya. This is a report on Libya. A 2004 terrorist suspect in the United Kingdom was let go, sent back to his hometown, Libya. Where is he now? This bombing terrorist suspect. He's now head of Tripoli's military council in Libya. He's heading up the military council. We're also seeing in Egypt a move directly towards the Muslim Brotherhood, directly towards an Islamic State. We saw this in Libya. We saw this we're seeing this in Yemen. We saw this in Egypt. There's increasing radicalization that it wasn't supposed to be. Everything was advertised to the Arab Spring as a democratic movement. It's not a democratic movement. And this I reported this before. The Arab Spring is an Islamic Spring. It was initiated by Israel in Pakistan to bring Israeli-style democracy. That was sort of the hope, the ideal that was sort of presented. To bring it was being sold as is Israeli-style democracy in the Middle East, in these Islamic countries. That never happened. And what do we get? What do we see from Israel on the ground? What do we see from what's being talked about in the Israeli media? Here's some ideas here. Here's some of the comments, right, from an Israeli report. Israeli officials say that it means unclear how far Washington will go to help bring down about Assad's fall. They say Syria might become a failed state if unrest continues, with Hezbollah and Iran on one side and Al Qaeda Sunnis on the other, consolidating footholds. In other words, here's what they're saying in the Israeli paper: the United States is knowingly supporting and supplying with weapons these rebel groups who are Al Qaeda. So you have Syria and Hezbollah on one side, and you have Al Qaeda, who are the Free Syrian Army, and the rebels on the other side. And this is who McCain is talking about funding and financing. So we go further on. What do we see further on, right? As we go down, you start reading through the comments, right? We will never be able to. We will never be able to bring back the Iran-Iraq war, but this is the next best thing. In other words, in order to keep the Islamists and people off Israel's back, Israel needs another Iran-Iraq war. It needs to be drawn out, protracted. It needs this unrest. It needs this war in order to degrade. And this is the personal side on it. We always the other one was an official report. This is the comments below from the average Israeli. We're seeing this here. We go down to the next one. It says both sides are clearly at fault here as they failed to place the nation's interests above the prime. The government is too selfish, and the opposition is possibly riddled with outside government and non-governmental involvement. In other words, they're acknowledging the intelligence agencies that are involved from outside of Syria. They're involved. This is sort of being admitted. This is a horrible conflict that will only resolve if the government and opposition representatives engage in direct negotiation and cough up a compromise. In other words, both sides have to disengage. And this is what the UN report was supposed to do. It's supposed to say that both sides had to disengage, but both sides couldn't disengage because we heard that from the United States and the United Kingdom that they were increasing their aid and supply to the opposition. How do you step down from a conflict if you're increasing your supply and support? Right? It says, I don't see this happening. Unfortunately, both sides are adamant in their positions. The only beneficiary in this conflict is undoubtedly Israel. Again, talking about conquering and dividing, dividing and conquering, keeping the Arabs fighting enough so that they're off the Israeli back. And this is what the whole purpose of the Iran-Iraq war was. Israel's involvement in there was to push this war into effect in order to destabilize Iran-Iraq enough so they couldn't pay its attention to Israel. This same thing was being articulated here. Now, amazing how Israel and the United States have mastered the art of manipulating and warping events and words. Those same terrorists carrying out orders of Saudi Arabia under the supreme command of the United States are the same terrorists the Americans are supposedly hunting in Iraq and Afghanistan. Right? What a charade. They're pointing this out. They're pointing out the hypocrisy that the United States, on one hand, is arming and training jihadists like Al Qaeda, while at the same time in Afghanistan and Iraq, they're hunting them down. They're fighting. In other words, they're arming the enemy they want to kill. But this again, none of this ever comes up in the American media. All this is now. You have to go outside the United States, and we have to go into. We're now in Israeli media for this, right? And as we continue on down, there are two more now, right? It says U.S. kills them in Yemen, hails them in Libya, arms them in Syria, and most likely trains them at Langley. This again, from the Israeli paper, is aimed at the United States. Is a criticism aimed at the United States for being on both sides of the argument, and this is also true aimed at also Israel as a backdoor way here, right? And then the last one, Al Qaeda my ass. Whatever really happens in Syria will be U.S. and Israel false flag operation disguised as Al Qaeda. So there is the conflict in Syria and Iran in a nutshell. We are going to war in Iran. The war in Iran has already begun in Syria. We're seeing this, and this is what's going on. You're being lied to in the mainstream media. And I'll leave you with this for now. Take it easy. Have a good night.